an understanding of war and revolutions that tells me that we may not get anywhere if, for example, at this particular point, we start thinking about how to arm ourselves against a murderous regime. One of the ways to arm ourselves for the younger people who've been out in the streets to counter a murderous regime is to figure out how to best sharpen their skills in nonviolent revolution. It's been done before. Now, the path towards a revolution that makes sure that you get to where you want to be is usually curtailed. It lasts a long time when you take up arms. It lasts a really long time, and it'll necessitate that you create a militia. It'll necessitate that you become an asymmetric warfare. It becomes an asymmetric warfare where you have to find safe places to hide, and that the regime has to up its game. So if there's any talk about trying to figure out how to counter a regime that becomes violent against you, the biggest challenge for this generation is to figure out how to up their game in non-violent revolution. It's been done. It's something that can be learned. You guys already showed you could do it. It was exceptional. And all I can say is keep going at that. Now, one of the strategies that we can think of is the idea of leaving out those who insist on staying as reactionaries, because reactionaries will drag you down. And I'm saying this because it is so easy for where this has reached for some people to say, you know, I think we've gotten enough concession from the president. I think a whole lot of people have been fired. I think we have reached a point where we do not need to think in a revolutionary way. We just need to think about how to shake hands, how to act, how to get along with those who want to make the current government work. So that's being reactionary. So if you have any reactionary voices amongst yourselves, you have to ask yourself, where is this? Is this really going to help us? So draw a line between reactionaries and revolutionaries. It is a time to step on the pedal and figure out how to best continue on the path of being a revolutionary. That means you are on the far end of the spectrum where you have committed to shifting paradigms and to bringing completely new change. I was asking some people what this exactly means for this generation. Does this mean a completely new government, new president, new everything? What does this mean for you? I cannot sit here and tell you guys that I know exactly what a complete revolution means for you, but I hear you. I'm listening. I'm following what you guys are looking for, and it has to be revolutionary. It cannot be reactionary. One other thing that I would like to say is that as you continue on this revolutionary path, is that you are going to need a war chest. And this war chest for non-revolutionaries means resources that are going to be there to sustain you and to protect you. It's just not just resources in funding, it's also resources in spaces that you're going to need. So you guys have some ways to go. You have come a very long way within a very short time. And I would say you carried us on your backs. We guys are looking for a Kenya we can continue to call home, that's as beautiful as the one we fought for since 1992 when we were fighting for the repeal of Section 2A, the Constitution, through fighting for the Constitution, through fighting against all the botched elections. Now here we are, and we're seeing a younger generation carry us on your backs. So what I'm saying is, as you do this, just remember we're there when you're ready to create your war chest, because you're going to need it. Build it. Call upon those of us, everybody who's there, who's ready to make sure that they want to see the Kenya they've always fought for. You need it as a revolutionary, as a non-violent revolutionary. You set your goals on that from day one. Keep at it. Thank you very much. I'm here to listen to everyone else who has to say something. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. for your very, very good, inspiring comments. Yes, we'll keep conversing as we proceed. I see Tony's hand is up. Neto, kindly feel free to chime in anytime you want to chime in.
Before Tony, can you see Barack Uluka, because I've tried to bring him in and he said in the floor, but I cannot see him. He's called Betty Muluka. I don't see
Barack
him
Muluka.
anymore.
Let me check on him. But meanwhile,
right.
Tell him not to log in through the phone. Is through the normal PC. You should log in via phone. But let me try to check on him, and then I'll text you. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Neto can pick it up and then.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marge. Thank you very much, Hillary. I really think that Buka and Dr. Mkawasi have already set the context for us. I mean, I think Buka is calling on for wider consultations of all the forces and the actors in the streets.
I can't hear Neto.
In terms of
Neto, are you speaking?
He is.
Yes.
He is speaking.
Yes, you can hear me.
He can speaking. Dr. can you hear me?
I can hear everybody else, but I can't hear Neto.
All right.
Okay. Hilary, can you hear me?
Neto. I think one person must drop. Come back.
Okay, I'll drop and come
All
back.
Right. Okay.
Looks like General Miguna's speakers are having small issues. But I just wanted to say two things. That number one, we've heard correctly from Buka in terms of what he thinks needs to be the way forward. Having all the actors in the streets, expanding the organization to form one formidable organization. But then, of course, Mkawasi says something which is really the core tenet of our constitution, that the revolution needs to remain as non-violent as it is, really. And that's actually the aspiration of Article 37 of the Constitution. And the Gen Z have done a very good job, and they've disarmed the powers that be, because then if people have just smartphones and have water, what then do you need to do? There's nothing much you can do. So the revolution, as much as it can, must always be non-violent, as anticipated under Article 37 of the Constitution. But of course, again, she says, we need not be reactionary. We just need to be the revolutionaries that we are. And of course, that's the point, because then, government is already coming in. You can see from what General Buka you've said, that the president's people are now responding with Ruto listens. That shows you that the pressure is going on. So I'd really like to listen to what Tony Gashoka would like to say, because then we really need to see what is the next focus pressure point. How do we put more pressure so that they can put more hashtags as they want, but we shall not respond to the hashtags. They need to be responding to that which we're doing. Tony Gashoka, thanks.
Thank you very much, comrade. Let me start by, first of all, sending on my behalf and all our behalves, Paula, to all the people who are now being found dead in Nairobi. And only God knows how they met their death and in the numbers that they are. So as we also mourn our people on the streets, let's also send out Paula Sana to them. I want to start by talking about Article 4 of the Constitution. Article 4 of the Constitution is the Declaration of the Republic. It says in Article 4, subsection 1, Kenya is a sovereign republic. Subsection 2, the Republic of Kenya shall be a multi-party democracy, a democratic state founded on national values and principles of governance, which are referred to in Article 10. Why I'm bringing up this issue is because we have, over time, made this about Ruto must go, and that must remain our clarion call. But one of the reasons that this revolution has been successful, it began by occupying parliament. Because in creating a multi-party democracy, yes, you have an executive on the one hand, but you have an opposition on the other. Why much blood was shed in the 90s was because before 1990, Moi was governing Kenya as a dictatorship and a one-party state. So the 2010 constitution was just an advance of the previous removal of Section 2A that made Kenya a multi-party democracy. I raised Article 4 and the inherent right of the people of Kenya to have a government and have an opposition that holds the government of the day to account in order that the people have a better government. It is terrible and beyond disbelief that the Jay-Z generation had to come and do the work of the opposition. There is no country that can call itself a democratic state that will need its citizens who have elected them in order to hold the government to account, to subjugate that responsibility to the people. Why I raise this issue is because as today I want to talk in the strongest terms possible against Raila Odinga and the Azimio Party. The people who are now holding Ruto afloat in this ocean of despair is none other than Raila Amolo Odinga. And today I want to give a synopsis before I deal with Raila. And I
Hey, Maj, Neto, what is happening?
Did you lose Tony? Tony, did we lose you?
Can't even.
No, I
mean-
think they're trying to mess up the network when Tony started mentioning Raila. Tony, can you hear us?
He's not even here. All right.
I mean,
Uh,
that's fine.
To deal with him.
yeah. When Tony is out, I think I can chime in. Tony is there.
Okay, go ahead.
Tony is
Go ahead,
there.
General.
Probably can come back and finish his statement.
Okay. Maj, can you hear?
Yes, General, we can hear you. I mean, you're saying that you want to go ahead before Tony so that Tony comes afterwards, which is fine. General, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, it would have been good if his thoughts were not truncated, but it is what it is. I will start by condoling with the many families that have lost loved ones and the many families that have missed or people who have been disappeared. And I would want to caution us, all of us, that we should not buy into state propaganda. The media does not belong, the mainstream media does not belong to the people, the 54 million, 55 million Kenyans. So we do not have to rely on the mainstream media to validate the fact that we have missing people. We should not rely on the state to validate the numbers of those that they have killed. I would want us to be careful not to fall into the trap of the state propaganda, that we must have quote unquote families complaining about missed ones, missing people, before we can say that there are missing people. We have to appreciate that there are a lot of families that are not closely knit. There are a lot of young people that are not in contact with their families on a daily basis. There are a lot of young people that came from rural areas and are trying to struggle in the cities or urban centers, and their parents or their relatives do not necessarily have phones to reach them. And you cannot reach a dead person. You cannot reach a disappeared person. You cannot reach an abducted person. You cannot reach a person who is decomposing in a swamp, or people who may have been cremated. So let's not be so quick to dismiss information or leads that we receive from sources. Because when you are in war, the state will try to diminish the number of people they have killed, the number of people they have abducted. They will try to distort and provide misinformation. If we are so quick to attack one another when we are sharing information and are so quick to fortify the propaganda by the state, then we have lost it. Then we are not part of the revolution. Our work as revolutionaries is to highlight the atrocities of the state, is to highlight the excesses of the state, is to trumpet our the values for which we are struggling. It's not to minimize our voices. It's not to fight one another. Number two, I want us to be careful of ownership of this movement or revolution. The revolution does not belong to anyone. It does not belong to any generation. It does not belong to any gender. It does not belong to any tribe. It does not belong to any party. It does not belong to any age group or group of friends. The struggle that Kenyans have been involved in against imperialism, against these puppets propped up by their controllers abroad, the IMF, the World Bank, the CIA, whatever, is a collective exercise. It's a collective movement. It's a collective revolution. If the Gen Zs and the millennials were the only ones on the street, they would not be able to succeed. We must support one another. We must make this a completely holistic and organic revolution. It must involve all age groups. In as much as the majority of the population are Gen Zs and the millennials are the ones that are mainly on the street, we cannot keep away. We cannot keep away because we are in Mombasa, we are in Kisumu, we are in New York, we are wherever. We have to remember that during the South African revolution against apartheid, during the movement against apartheid, most of the fighters were trained in Tanzania. They were not trained in South Africa. Their leaders were in London. They were not in Johannesburg. And so were all revolutionaries around the world. Lenin did not start his revolution to Russia from Russia. Marx never lived in Russia. Che Guevara was not a Cuban. We have to always remember that anytime these people bring atomization, parochialism, distortions, and diversions, the moment they ask you, where are you? All these voices are NIS. Because why should it matter where we are? Why do you want me to declare where I am? Unless you are coming to abduct me. Why is that your interest? We have to resist all attempts to divert us. The third point I wanted to make. Ruto is weak. Ruto is cornered. And when I say Ruto, I mean the regime. The regime is weak. The regime is cornered. The regime is desperate. The regime does not have any more tricks. The trickery of so-called dissolving the cabinet is nothing but that, a trick. Because are you in control of who is going to appoint? No. Can you guarantee that the people is going to appoint would serve the public interest? No. Can you guarantee that these people will be qualified? No. Can you guarantee that these people will not loot public resources? No. Can you guarantee that these people will not perpetuate impunity? No. So then, why would you say that he has done anything? He has done absolutely nothing. And as we said, the problem starts at the top. As they say, from where I was born, fish rots from the head. This fish is rotten. The rot was not at the cabinet level. The rot sits at State House. The rot chairs the cabinet. The rot is the commander-in-chief of the goons that are executing people on the street. The rot leads the looters that were distributing money every weekend in sacks. So therefore, if you don't replace the rot with all its miasma, whatever it is that you want to call it, it will regroup. It will grow again. And it will perpetuate a more vicious system of elimination, system of abduction, system of looting than the previous one. We cannot let Ruto escape now. As Buka correctly said, any attempt at dialogue, any attempt to blunt our attacks on the regime, any attempt to divert us, like ODM and the rest have been doing, is counter-revolutionary. It's an attempt to subvert, to sabotage the revolution. It's to try to abort it, like they have always done. This is what they did in 1969. This is what they did in 1992 when the Section 2A was repealed. This is what they did in 2002 after the defeat of Kibaki during the referendum. This is what they did in 2007 when we pinned Kibaki to the ground. This is what they did in 2017, 2018 when the NRM pinned Uhuru and Ruto to the ground. Raila came from behind and he had a handshake and he subverted everything. And this is what they're doing now. Without this historical context, you're doing absolutely nothing. We must understand this in its correct historical context. These people belong to one club. They belong to one class. They are oriented in the same political mind space. The only thing they understand is to exploit, is to loot, and is to oppress. So what we need
Miguna,
to do, yes.
I was requesting if I could just, I'm leaving in 10 minutes. I had lost the mic. You might, if you could, as you are finishing, I could do, and you can come back on.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm finishing.
Thank you. Thank you.
The scaremongering that there will be a vacuum if Ruto resigns with Gachagua and that the military will take over is nothing but scaremongering. These people know very well that when Ruto resigns, Gachagua will not take power because he will be going with Gachagua. We will be dissolving this government. And because the Gen Zs and the millennials and the revolutionaries have already rejected all the parties, Azimio will not come to replace them. This is the beauty of it. That this revolution is supposed to remove all of them in one fell swoop. So there will be no vacuum. The military will not interfere. They have never interfered. And they're not going to interfere. They have shown that from their presence on the streets. So let no one scare us that the military will take over. And this movement is more mature than the movement in the Sudan. That was a military dictatorship being replaced by people who had not even tried to fight against that dictatorship. So they got hijacked. This will not happen in Kenya. We are too sophisticated. We are ideologically rooted. And when I say we, I mean all of us from all generations, including Gen Zs and the millennials. We are not going to leave anybody out because this country belongs to all of us. So let no one lie to us or deceive us that they can come out of this. We have to remove them. Let's make Tuesday the 16th huge until they will just take the helicopters or wherever to wherever they are going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General.
Yes.
Thank you very much, General. And because Tony is leaving, Tony, just go ahead so that at least you save your time before you can then come back for the comments. Thanks, Tony.
Right. So I was saying that in order to go ahead, but you have to read Article 4 of the Constitution and hold to account the opposition as much as you hold the government. And the next time we have this change, we must know that we elected a bad executive and we elected a bad opposition. They have failed at their job, and therefore they are making the people have to do their work for them. But now, in order now to know the pressure point for Zakayo, you must understand his history. Now, William Ruto initially, when he was only 26, became the co-founder of the organization of the organizing secretary of the infamous Youth for KANU 92. That was a lobby group that was key upon looting the economy of Kenya then, but also used to fund terror groups that intimidated those that were not with Moi or what was called as the Nyayo era. This is when, by the way, Ruto began to accumulate skills of terror and wealth accumulation. And in fact, at that time, people will remember the Moi regime would not hesitate to detain without trial, abductions, and murder. So the blueprints or the architecture of the KANU regime, where William Ruto began his politics, is the architecture that he's practicing today. Kenyans forget and need to be reminded, particularly the Jay-Z, that in 2011, William Ruto, who had been suspended as Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology over integrity issues by Mwai Kibaki, was summoned to appear on the 8th of March at the ICC at The Hague, charged with crimes on the post-election violence in Kenya. It's important to understand why William Ruto went to The Hague and what were the charges. The charges that William Ruto faced at the ICC when he was arraigned were crimes against humanity, murder, deportation, and the forcible transfer of a population and their persecution. And William Ruto did not go to The Hague for nothing. William Ruto went to The Hague for something. But what will fascinate Kenyans is who actually asked The Hague to drag William Ruto there. It was ODM. The Orange Democratic Movement Secretary General, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, when I was press secretary to Raila Odinga during the 90s, is the one who wrote a letter to the prosecutor at The Hague, asking and detailing the crimes committed by William Samoei Ruto, that Ruto cannot escape charges of the crimes against humanity. I find it the height of hypocrisy that Raila Odinga, who sent Ruto to The Hague for crimes against Kenyans, crimes against humanity, is the man who wants to remove William Ruto from the ocean where he's sinking. I'm raising this issue because the way forward and the pressure points that are here is that you must take William Ruto and Raila Odinga as siblings. You must take them as one. Because it seems today that all the other organs, including the cabinet, have gone. And the only thing and the only man holding Zakayo in office is Raila Amolo Odinga. I want to be as clear as possible. The only person holding Zakayo to office over the promise of dialogue and a government of national unity is no other than Raila Amolo Odinga. So I want to be very clear today to Agwambo. And I want him to know that this is not General Miguna, because Miguna knows how to deal with you in a better way than me. But I know you, Raila. And I know your history with William Ruto.
But
and what you're doing to this country.
If you want to address Raila Amolo Odinga on a personal note, I think that you can do directly even on your handle. We accept that you're bringing in...
Maj, I think you should let him finish.
Yes, but we know, because even...
No, Raila is bigger than a person, right?
Yes.
When he says Raila, we know what he means. So
Dr. Miguna, please, kindly just allow us to host the space. What I'm trying to say is that we do not want to have personal attacks. We do not want to be used to address other people. If he is here to mention the things that like he had done before, it was okay to say this and this, and I'm not trying to censor you. I'm just trying to say personal messages to other people, they can be sent out there. People can use their
Maj, let Tony finish his message.
Yes, he's going to finish, but we want to really, I want to underline that that this is not a space to do that. Tony, over to you.
In order to say that what I'm saying is correct, Kenya found a BBI bill that was championed by Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. The High Court, in fact, 5 judges of the High Court, found under Article 257 that the matter was not people-driven. Justice Joel Ngugi of the High Court, Justice George Oguda, Justice Nyaga, Justice Madheka, and so forth. So I'm telling Maj that what I'm discussing about a people-driven matter has gone before the courts. BBI was stopped because it did not have or seek public participation. I'm a journalist who understands very clearly the rules of journalism are that opinion is free, but facts are sacred. And I saw a press conference where the ODM and later Raila Odinga said that they want to have dialogue and a discussion with Zakayo on behalf of the people of Kenya, that they are going to convene. And what the BBI ruling said, the president or Raila could not initiate the people-driven.
Did we lose Tony again? Can someone hear him?
No, I cannot hear him.
No,
I'm trying to read.
I cannot hear him as well.
But,
Yeah,
but may I
I'm also-
request, Hilary, may I request that we give the chance to Peter Maina? He's logging in from China, so his time zone is really, really, I mean, I think he's up in the night. And I just want to reiterate that this really applies to everyone, even for all our speakers here. When somebody comes to attack them personally, we will push back. But when they're coming to challenge their ideas, we are okay with it. Peter Maina, kindly.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I strongly disagree with that statement. We cannot separate Ruto from Ruto the president and Ruto the person. It's one and the same thing. So when we say Ruto, we mean exactly Ruto. We mean Ruto personally, and we mean Ruto as the president. When we discuss his history, we discuss his history personally, and we discuss his history politically. The same thing must apply to Raila Odinga. We must allow everybody else to speak freely, even if you deem that that is personal attack, because Raila is both a person, a leader of a political party, and a symbol for something. We cannot muzzle anyone in a revolution. So let people speak. When they are speaking about these enemies of the people, they must be allowed to speak freely and fully.
Thank you very much, General. Your point is made. Maj, let's indulge General. And like you said, Peter Maina, please, you have the microphone. Thanks.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As Maj said, my name is Peter. I'm in Hong Kong, so I need to clarify I'm in Hong Kong, although Hong Kong is part of China. I appreciate the mic. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that I would like, first of all, to send my condolences to the comrades who have lost their lives fighting for Kenya. We should honor them and we should appreciate them for their sacrifices. Having said that, I would like to congratulate the Kenyans and tell them that whatever that you guys are doing, even if we are not there, we support you, we will support you, we are with you together, and we are going to achieve our objective. So let me say that, Maj, today I have time, so don't worry that today about the time. Today I have enough time, so I'll be here all through. I would like to give the General time and Tony Gachoka time. Let's give them time. They give us the context and also they encourage us and advise us on the way we can move forward. Because I think it is very important that we understand the people that we are trying to fight with or we are trying to remove from power and their supporters and their backers. So as Tony Gachoka was trying to explain, I think it is very important that we understand the context so that when we engage them, we know where we know the person we are engaging and how they play their game. Because you see, politics is a game. And what they are doing now to call for dialogue, the dialogue is not a real dialogue as they want, as they are telling us. They are trying to, Ruto is trying to buy time. And when they are trying to buy time, we should not give them. So it is very important that we are able to face them and do our thing without getting distracted. So I have time. Thank you very much. Let me give back the mic. I'll talk as we move on forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Maj, as you come in, Neto, and then Daktari, can you ask Miguna Miguna, because I see you drop, you come back. I don't know, people are dropping, coming back. Are you in the speaker?
I can hear you, and I wanted to. I wanted to tell you that Barack Muluka is actually waiting to be
Yeah,
allowed.
I'm looking for him. I'm looking.
He's
Okay,
right
now
here.
I've
it is
just
now on.
added
It is
him.
now on
I've
the
added
speaker.
him
He's
now.
here.
I
He's
am
here.
here. I
He's
can
added.
hear you loud and clear. My name is
All right.
Barak.
Yeah, we have added him already. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
So I think Dr. Barak is now on. Just take the mic if you're ready, and then we go to Tabitha.
Spot on. Thank you very much, Maj. My name is Barak Mluka, and I am speaking from Nairobi. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this forum. It's my first time to say anything on the platform. I have previously listened and followed their conversations very closely, and I congratulate those who have convened us on this platform. I also wish to associate myself with the sentiments that have been expressed with regard to those who have lost their lives, those who have been injured, those with broken bones, and who have been maimed in different ways. And that speaks to the kind of state that we are engaged with. And I'd like to hail the youth of this country. We are right here in Nairobi, as it were in the eye of the needle, at the center of the theater where the rubber meets the road. And so we see it and feel it in a very practical sense. That does not mean in any way that we diminish the collectivity of the effort to vary the situation in our country and make ourselves a better country. As I said in an article which maybe some of you have read in today's press, we are living in very exciting times, and I think that we are on the cusp of a revolution. As a matter of fact, I first spoke about this about 2 years ago in July 2022, when I cautioned all those who would aspire to lead that the way ahead was not going to be a bed of roses. And if there were any doubting Thomases, they can now see where we are, and they can confirm that this is not a picnic. As I listen to us over the past couple of weeks, I have advised myself that there is need for us to draw some very clear demarcations between a revolution and a change of guard. I see that we tend sometimes to focus, as we talk about the next pressure points, about the removal of the custodians of a system. And as a student of political science and history, I advise myself that there is a wide bath between a change of guard and a revolution. A change of guard without attempting to be patronizing, really, is when we remove the custodian who is there for the time being and bring in different custodians without addressing the fundamentals of the pillars that hold the system in place. I see that as Kenyan people, we have had very many false dawns. And Dr. Miguna Miguna has taken us through a chronology of turning points when our history has failed to turn. My interpretation as a student of politics, history, and international relations is that during all those vantage points that Dr. Miguna talks about, we have attempted to remove the custodians of the system, the gatekeepers, without varying the system itself. And therefore, as we go forward, I do agree that William Samoei Ruto is the custodian, is the person that we are addressing just now, but we must go beyond the person called William Samoei Ruto. We must clearly define what we want. And I think that the Gen Zs have been spot on. They have mentioned the changes that they want to see so that they start leading us towards the kind of country that we want. Yet I see that even those, as they are put together and pushed through, if they will be, will not necessarily amount into a revolution. They could be piecemeal changes within the same existing system. I see that members of the political class are regrouping, and that starting tomorrow, we will have the custodians of the system coming together in a rehashed and choreographed kind of dialogical arrangement, at the end of which things which they have already pre-concluded will be cast before the nation as the outcomes of that so-called dialogue. And basically, it is protection of the status quo, which we must be conscious of and which we need to stand up against. Now, as we say that, therefore, we have got to ask ourselves what our methods are going to be. I think the first speaker, I'm not so sure who she was, I found her going on, spoke about the need for non-violence. And I do think that the non-violent approach was the defining methodological departure from the earlier efforts, and it's been able to move us very significantly. When we say that such and such a date is going to be the 0 hour, it's going to be the moment that the guillotine will come down, I would urge us to speak a lot more about the methods that will make that happen rather than the characterization of the villains. We already know about the villains, and that is why we are engaging against them. And if more of our energy would go towards saying, so this is what we must do, and attempt to break it down, I'm afraid I will not pretend that I have got any fast and ironcast answers on what needs to be done. But I also know that when you have a formula that is working, you tend to continue to apply that formula. As you may think about other formulas, we have been occupying spaces, and we want to talk a lot more about occupying more spaces in a non-violent manner, barring which we would be talking about engaging as militias. And I doubt that that is the path that we want to engage with, certainly not for the time being, in my view. And so what do we do to mobilize more people to come out if we are talking about revolution, and also defining very clearly that as we talk about a revolution, because for me, as a student of revolutions in world history, and there I can claim the right to speak ex cathedra because it's one of my areas of study and specialization. I understand revolutions in world history, and I would know that if you just substitute one individual with another like we do in football, then you have not carried through a revolution. We must talk about a systemic change, and we must define the system that we want, and we must define the kind of leadership that we want, and we must define the kind of country that we want. And then we must also define probable and possible timelines. Then we can talk as a country, as Kenyans, as patriots, that we are pushing towards a revolution and that we are edging in to the expected outcomes. And so, therefore, finally, because I intend to keep my remarks fairly brief, we do well to recognize just two things that I want to conclude with. Number one, and I think it was Dr. Miguna Miguna who spoke about that, Gen Z must become a spirit rather than a physical, temporal definition and limitation of persons and groups in terms of age. Yes, the age factor has been important because this is a demographic that has galvanized the nation into action, but it must spread beyond that to become a spirit and to become a movement of like-minded persons, regardless of what other descriptors and defining and limiting factors there could be about their identity. Let it be a spirit, let it be a movement that brings all and everybody who is like-minded on board. And B, within final, is that I appreciate this notion of leaderless. Yes, I agree very much with the notion of tribeless, partyless, but I doubt that I could subscribe for too long on the notion of leaderless. I have studied revolutions in world history. I know, for example, that one of the reasons the 1848 revolutions in Europe failed was absence of clear leadership and absence of organization from France to Italy to Prussia and to other places where the revolutionaries attempted to put their act together. And in Africa, we have had failed quasi-revolutions because they have lacked a proper organization and leadership, and in the end, they have been hijacked by marauding vultures who have then gone on to perpetuate the systems that the people were trying to overthrow. So allow me to just limit my remarks for now to that so that we can also listen to wisdom from others. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Neto, do you want to chime in before Tabitha comes in? And I see Buka is raising his hand.
Yes, I have a few reactions.
Over to you. Go on, Buka.
Thank you. I've just been summing up some of the contribution of my fellow panelists, but just to contextualize them, I think there are three important things that if we do not do, then the chances of success are very limited. One, and it's that we must understand the enemy clearly. In fact, if we understand the enemy clearly, then we can define tactics and strategy to defeat the enemy. So this is important. And then what do we want to achieve? In our correct analysis, the enemy is a group of individuals, and they are a minority that consistently get support from certain foreign interests to impose policies upon the Kenyan people that are alien to the majority of those people, that are alien to the majority of the Kenyan people. That means President William Samoei Ruto is a representation of a class, a parasitic class that are rich, corrupt, but they do not produce anything. Now, once we classify the people in this country that act as conveyor belts for the international, imperialism, particularly now that people are even conscious about IMF and World Bank, IMF will not find a root in Kenya without such individuals. These people exist both in government and opposition. These are the criminals that we must defeat to access power. And to defeat them to access power, whether the current Kenya Kwanza administration falls or not, will depend on how intensively we are organized. And remember, we are not only seeking to overthrow the current status quo, but to overthrow them, we need to appeal to the broadest sections of the Kenyan masses. Because when they are under threat, they will want to divide us. And how are they dividing us now? Because even the rhetoric that the old people should not be able to comment because this is not their war is a reactionary perspective of the event. Because if we did not have our ancestors fighting to liberate this democratic space, if Dedan Kimathi was not hanged by the settler colonialism, then we will not be able to speak on this platform today. If the martyrs of the fight against dictator Moi's misrule, then we won't be on this platform. If the fight of those who martyred during the fight for the 2010 constitution, so the struggle does not move in a straight line, but also the struggle builds on generations. So the Gen Z are actually only fulfilling their historical task by advancing the struggle that was started for the majority of the Kenyan people since independence. What do we want to achieve? In our correct analysis, we want the Kenyan people to make a decision based on their own consciousness as Kenyan people. That means the fight is to complete our independence, to be able to free ourselves. Because without economic independence, we don't have sovereignty. What IMF and World Bank, together with their, in fact, President William Samoei Ruto and their class, they are so weak to oppress us. That is why they have to form alliances of repression and oppression with international capital and bring the army here for the United States, bring the army for the British here. And this is what we must continue to advance, that the Kenyan people want to make decision as the Kenyan people. Now, so that is what we are fighting for. On the ownership of the revolution, I like the way it has been carried out, but we must say that victory belongs to the masses. The victory always belongs to the Kenyan masses, and that only the person with the people shall carry the mantle of a true revolution. In fact, William Ruto got to capture the imagination of the youth through lies and platitudes. He managed to capture the seat narrowly, but he cannot sustain his win because his popular cause was actually based on platitudes, and lies to the general public. So for us to be able to sustain this momentum, we must continue to advance and appeal to the broader sections of the Kenyan masses to defeat the status quo. On compromises or hardliners, my comment is that those people who compromise with the criminal regime are actually part of that class. Remember, during independence, narrow nationalists like Jomo Kenyatta compromised with the colonial British to actually continue with the land theft and domination and to actually re-establish the neo-colonial system. So the people who want to negotiate with President William Samoei, the criminal that has shed too much blood in the Kenyan street, they do not have a problem with the current status quo. They are only envious that now President William Samoei Ruto is overseeing their affairs on behalf of the real enemy. But these people who want to compromise, they only see themselves occupying the positions of the white masters that are now the neo-colonial chieftaincies that we have in this country. So we must call those people who want us to compromise at this time and tell them that everything else that the Kenyan people have won, they have won it hard-won with their own blood. So we must never derail them by compromises with this illegitimate regime. Now, on personality, we have to know that even though President William Samoei Ruto is a Kalenjin, but he's the worst Kalenjin. Even though Gachagua is a Kikuyu, but is the worst Kikuyu. In fact, the system that we have in place makes sure that the most powerful positions in these countries are occupied with the most backward people. In fact, President William Samoei Ruto does not represent the interest of the Kalenjin community. The Mudavadi does not represent the interest of the Luya nation. Gachagua does not represent the interest of the Kikuyu nation. In fact, they represent the interest of a minority of those small nationalities that they continue to ride on their back and negotiate for political power. So they must be called out in terms of mobilization, that even when people talk about tribalists, like I'd rightly say, it is not per se that the objective reality people are tribalists, but they are tired of political elite that uses tribalism to divide them along ethnic lines. So they are rejecting that kind of tribalism. On dialogue and the MPs who voted yes, I think what we must hear that the MPs that voted yes are the enemies of the Kenyan people. But the MPs who voted no, they must be seen to represent the interest of the people. So they should be the first people to start filing an impeachment motion against this president, because they know for sure the Kenyan people will support it. But don't they just think they will be complacent by saying that, no, we voted no? That is not enough. They must then do more in terms of what the constitutional framework offers them, to make sure that the person who has shed so much blood in the Kenya and is determined to kidnap us and to abduct us is removed from political power. And why we must win this war? Because when the storm, when actually the storm goes down, the amount of repression that the Kenya Kwanza is going to do upon us is going to be almost near death. So we are fighting a fight for survival. We are fighting a fight of life and death. If we leave President William Samoei Ruto to stay in power for an inch, once he re-establishes himself, he will massacre us, he will kill us, he will run around and actually collect the people he thought caused him this pain, and they will be sent down under. This is what we must tell the population, that the repression will not continue, will not stop after the rejection of the finance bill. In fact, he will be able to re-establish himself in power, just like Moi did after 1982. Did he not send people to exile? Did he not form torture chambers? So the reason why William Samoei Ruto must not stay any longer in power is also for preservation of the progressives and the revolutionaries that have been opposing his government all this time. That is why we say on Tuesday, we are asking the President William Samoei, because he knows them, he must provide the people that are abducted, the people that have been kidnapped, dead or alive. He has to produce them, so that at least from that clean sheet, even if we are charging him, we know we have the evidence of dead bodies on the table. But at the moment, when we don't have our loved ones, then we must continue to push on for that kind of thing. Now, on the attacks of who supported who, this is something that has been used to attack the people who are appealing to unite all the progressive forces. There are people who probably will have supported Ruto at that time. There are people who will have supported other people at that time. But if they genuinely come to the people's camp and then say that we realize we have made certain mistake and they are willing to fight on our side, then we must welcome them with jubilation and actually make sure that they can fight alongside us until the defeat of the primary enemy, because this is important. And then finally, on violence and non-violence, it is important because the state has sponsored a certain narrative that there were criminals in the streets. The truth of the matter that we must continue to say is that the violence that was on the street, as we were on the street, was started by the organized violence of the state. When people rises up to do a peaceful march in this country, they are met with police batons, they are met with extreme violence of the police. Remember, on day 1 and day 2, there was a peaceful protest, and then day 3, they started to break the front. They are shooting rubber bullets, shooting live bullets, and the only way to break the barrier of the police until we reached parliament was to confront the police violence. And it took at least limited violence from the people who were on the street to make sure that they were able to break the 3 barriers to reach parliament. So we must understand that there is revolutionary violence and there is reactionary violence. We must not be ashamed to defend the people whose crime were only in the streets to defend this democratic space, but they were being shot at by live bullets. They were being shot at by tear gas canisters, by rubber bullets. They had to move to reach their destination, which was to present a petition in parliament. This is important for us. And when we go to the streets, we call upon the police to define the routes where people will go. We have always called upon the police to sit down with the organizers, but they obviously refuse. In fact, Bungei, that is still serving in the police force, and the IG that has resigned, they will not accept a peaceful protest because they want to use the opportunity to brutalize the people. So we must continue to debunk what violence and what non-violence, because then we cannot behave like in Jeketile Rebellion, where the white man was shooting at us with bullets, and then they were spraying water, like witchcraft on them. This is something that we must continue to debunk. Otherwise, my conclusion with this submission, that comrades, let us open doors to consult widely, to build an outcome in terms of an organization of national that has a national that cuts across all stratas of interest in this country, and prepare for a post-Ruto era by having a government that can respond to the people. Why are we asking President William Ruto to fire people? After he's gone, we can actually fire them all and recruit people who can serve us. Why are we asking the President Ruto, who has continued to defy the constitution, to implement the constitution? When we have a pro-people government, the constitution will be implemented to serve the majority of the people. So the actual thing is we go to the real enemy, finish the real enemy, overhaul the system, and roll out a pro-people government. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Booker. Let's have Tabitha speak, then Neto, and then Anthony, and then we'll open the mic to other speakers. Hilary, I see your mic is on. Go on.
Yeah, I think Tabitha dropped. I don't know. And Neto, can you hear us, or you're hanging? Because I'm just wondering what is happening. I think Neto is also
Neto is. I think Neto
so,
is also dropped from technical issues. Neto, would you kindly then just
he should drop and come back.
Drop Neto, then come back. So
I think Maj, let Anthony go because he's representing the Gen Z group.
Okay, Anthony, over to you.
And he has really been on the road.
Hello, am I audible to everyone?
Loud and clear.
Okay. First of all, I'm a millennial, but let me just take this opportunity to thank you for opening this wonderful space where we get to exchange ideas on the Kenya we want and the country we want to have. I've had several people, Miguna, Anthony Gashoka, talk about the Ruto they know, which I believe is something we should all focus on. Anytime you're going to either take part in sport or politics or even war, you first of all must appreciate your opponent. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses and all that? Ruto is not president by accident. He was strategic about it. He planned about it. And I believe he believes he knows what exactly he wants to achieve in this regime that he's leading. Our differences between us who are agitating for change are more of ideological differences. We all agree we want better accountability. We all agree we want a very deliberate fight on corruption. We all agree we need to stop seeing the blatant plunder of our country. We also need to agree that all movements that changed the course of a nation were started by young people. from the Mau Mau to repealing Section 2A to the Katiba movement to what we are doing right now. What I feel we are missing is a structure. Because for us to advance in any way, we need a structure so that we know in which direction are we all going. I just feel we are moving in very many directions at the same time. I also feel that we are not taking advantage of the small wins we get. And I'll go back to something I think someone alluded to, that come this Monday, tomorrow, a group of 150 people will sit down somewhere in this country, I don't know whether it's KICC, and they will start picking the next IEBC. Still, next week, the cabinet will be announced, I think by Thursday or Friday. For us who are agitating, will our choice, our voice, our aspirations be represented on the IBC we want to see? Will the same things, the ideologies we want, be represented on the cabinet that is going to be selected? Because he did say that he will consult. But I noted clearly, he said political parties, church leaders, civil society. He never mentioned the Gen Z movement anywhere. For us to be able even to feel we are winning, because I believe in any move, any agitation worldwide, study history for as far back as we can go. Anytime you gain ground, you need to learn to live. I'll appreciate, yes, appreciate that we need to leave our foot soldiers, people who represent our ideas and what we want. Right now, we are gaining ground, but we're just moving. We are leaving no one behind to say what we want. My other point is
could you try to land in the next 1 minute and just a clarification?
Actually, I am.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'm on my last point.
Yes, and then Dr. you're gonna be next. Yeah.
I'm on my last point.
Okay, please go.
Next is someone, I think it was Booker, who talked about how we demonstrate and the way we need to demonstrate. Personally, I feel we can have two fronts. We can have the street movement, which, if I was asked, we need to strategize on how do we prevent hired goons from penetrating what we are doing. And this is why most people switched to a strategy of a peaceful way of demonstrating. And I'll give an example. When Takna Shinawatra was being overthrown, all those people did was sit down on tarmac. You know, you choose major roads, the road to Treasury, the road to Parliament, and the road to the airport. Okay? If you sit on those roads, how can a goon penetrate that? If today government comes and starts tear gassing people who are sitting down, then the world will say, hey, that's not right. These people are peaceful. They are asking for you to listen. But so long we continue doing things, and General is here, Miguna, so long we continue doing things the Raila way, we are going to the streets, we will lose because we are fighting an intellectual. We need to fight an intellectual battle. We use brute force where it's needed, and we use intellectual muscle where it's needed.
Yeah.
Those were my only points.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Maj. I really like the ideas that are flowing in. I would like to comment just briefly, but I'll start with what Ruto said today. Ruto said, with his chest out, I'm fully in charge. That's what he was saying. As a strategist and a revolutionary, when you hear someone in power saying, I'm fully in charge, it's actually a declaration of, I'm completely not in charge. So that's what Ruto was saying. I'm completely not in charge. Because for you to say you are in charge, you don't have to say it. People should see that you are in charge. We know for a fact that Ruto is very, very weak and cornered. Now, to dial back to what Barack Muluka said and what Buka said, both of them are correct. Ruto and his regime and his collaborators are the ones that are the immediate target of the revolution. But the revolution will not be complete if we do not overhaul the entire neo-colonial imperialist structures that were put in place to keep the African down. And that is why it is not just a Gen Z revolution. Because when you are reconstructing a country, I saw somebody produce a very beautiful map saying under construction or under renovation, Kenya, the map of Kenya. When you are renovating, when you are reconstructing, when you are overhauling, whatever word you want to choose, of an entire political, economic, cultural, social structure, because that's what we will be doing, it means that it will not take a day, and it means you're not doing it for one generation. It means you're not doing it for yourselves. It means it is classless. It means it is tribeless, because the country is for all of us. And we must do this for the future generations that have not yet been born, that are yet to be born. And for the past heroes that have died for the changes and the transformative results that we are seeking. That's what we are doing it for. The justice we are seeking, as I have always said, is justice as far back as Pio Pinto Gama, as far back as the ones the British killed, many of them, and as far back as the children and innocent civilians that Kenyatta mowed down at the former Russia hospital in Kisumu, as far back as the people Moi killed during the 1982 coup, as far back as those who were tortured in Nyayo House and were thrown from windows, as far back as those who died in exile during Kenyatta, during Moi, during Kibaki. There were people who went to exile during Kibaki. Remember, there were hundreds and thousands who crossed the border from Busia and from many other parts in Western Kenya to go into Uganda. Some of them never came back. A lot of us do not want to remember this. We cannot forget the people that died in 2007, 2008, 2013, 2018, 2017, and as recently as last year, when the police went all over Nyanza, all over Kibera, all over the residences in Nairobi, took people from their homes, killed them in Sondu area. We cannot forget these people. We cannot, for the life of us, only remember Rex. No, we remember all of them. Let's do this for generations past, for generations now, and for generations in the future. Then we will get somewhere. I think it is wrong to say that we get out of the streets. The streets is where the liberation must be obtained. That's our space. Kenya, the entire country, whether it is the streets in the urban centers, whether it is in the villages, wherever it is, we have to encourage Kenyans to come out everywhere and occupy everywhere. So if some people occupy streets, so be it. But we have to occupy the CBD of Nairobi, because that's the area where power resides in the Republic of Kenya. So we cannot encourage people, we cannot discourage people from coming out. We should be encouraging them to come out in large numbers. I will, however, disagree with Buka on impeachment. We do not want impeachment. That's a futile exercise. It will not happen. All members of parliament have been voted. The ones who voted no and the ones who voted yes. we are going to have to replace the entire political class currently occupying institutions of power, because they are all on the same side. I say on the same side because if you listened over their speeches over the weekend, if you listen to ODM and Azimio people speaking from Kakamega, if you listen to them speaking from the KICC with Ruto, they are reorganizing, they are rebranding, they are strategizing on how to take over this revolution, this movement, so that they can come in with people, imposters, youth from all over the country that are going to do their bidding. These youth do not represent the revolutionaries on the street, the ones who have died, the ones who have been abducted, the ones who have been tortured. So we have to be very clear. If we are rejecting and we are overhauling the entire system, we cannot at the same time say that we want them to go to the same rotten National Assembly that passed Finance Bill 2024 to impeach Ruto. That would be witchcraft. They will not be able to impeach Ruto. We want Parliament disbanded, and we are going to do it. Just like you said correctly, that why are we asking for Ruto to fire so-and-so? We remove him with the entire regime, which means we fire everybody, plus we fire the opposition that is fortifying them. So I will end by saying, I think the next pressure point is Tuesday, that we should come out in large numbers so that if Ruto is going, and by Ruto I mean the entire regime, is going to die by cardiac arrest, so be it. Let's cause that cardiac arrest to happen as soon as possible. Let's remove these people. Let's then transform this the system of governance. But we cannot do it, of course. The strategy of doing that will not be done on the spaces because they are here. I've actually seen my friend Murkomen is here and other people from State House. So people are listening to us, and it is good that they are here because I think they need to listen to us. And they need to know that what they're trying to do now is too little, too late. We are not interested. That is something they should have done 2 years ago when they were sworn into power. They failed to do that. They showed us that they were not interested. They were not capable. They are not competent. They are, in terms of integrity, they are incurably defective. And so the people have resorted to take back the power that we donated to them and are now exercising that power. And Tuesday should be the final push when they all are removed from power. I will yield the mic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Before we proceed to NATO, I would just like to underline that indeed there is the only opposition we have in the country is the population. And the unfortunate event that happened, unfortunate but also fortunate, is that when there was signing in or the IBC topic there, the opposition actually, who was supposed to be defending the country, came and joined the ruling party. And it was unfortunate, but at the same time, very fortunate, because then the people would see that these, they're on their own, actually. That was the message they communicated right there. So for this, I believe also any process going through the same, parliament would not go through. Another thing I wanted to highlight, that was at the very beginning, Dr. talked about communication and information where people were attacking each other, and there were a lot of propaganda going on. In the recent times, we've seen, actually it was my very first time that I saw any country beating Russia with the propaganda. At the very beginning, they really floored them. Russia came and caught up later. So in war, there's power in information. What I find very unfortunate is that if A says this is happening, instead of people coming to prove A wrong they come and attack A and say, no, he's lying. And so there's a risky situation in Kenya at the moment, because we have this side saying this side saying one thing, the other side saying the other thing. The government itself cannot be trusted with information. So we have really a vacuum that's really leading to a lot of misinformation. I hope the LSK is going to step up. I hope so far the public seem to be trusting them more, but we need a clear, when something happens, we need a body coming up and say, this is what we believe to be true because of ABC. That will give the public more trust, and then we'll end up having, we'll end up having a better situation than now. Now it's chaotic. Over to you, Neto.
Thank you very much, Maj. And I'm conscious of the fact that after this, you'd like us to give open mic. But there are three things that I'd like to state. I think Dr. Muluka and General Miguna, their minds have met to the extent that really this particular revolution needs to be a collective, that, people of all generations need to come up together and, we do this together. But more instructive is General Muluka sharing with this history of revolutions, to the extent that, if it's leaderless, then of course it takes too long to deliver. So I think that's a point that you really need to take into consideration. But I also think that matches with what Buka said in terms of expanding all the voices in the streets into a formidable and organized structure. Having said that much, let me say three things. Number one, what the people of Kenya are doing is constitutional. There is nothing unconstitutional about what we are doing. It is because, and I'm happy that Tony Gashoka was really was on top of it, when he said, when he took us to Article 4 of the Constitution. But I want to expand it slightly a bit more and point out 4 or 5 articles of the Constitution. The first one is the article that gives sovereignty to the people. And that article says that the people shall exercise their sovereignty directly, and where sometimes or may delegate. So of course, that sovereignty was delegated to the Houses of Parliament, has been delegated to the executive. But we think that the executive is not running the country in the manner that we had hoped that he does that. What did he do? Article 10 aspirations in terms of national values, national core values have not been taken into consideration. Article 73, Article 74, 75, 76 of the Constitution with regard to national integrity and integrity of leadership has not been taken into consideration. So therefore, the Kenyan people are saying, within the means and province of the Constitution, Article 37, we shall peacefully and unarmed present a petition to you, the presidency, telling you that you are not running the country in the way that we want to run. All this is very constitutional. So we hope that the presidency can then see within the meaning of Article 146, which provides for the president may and should resign, because then the people of Kenya are saying, we gave you a mandate, you've not been able to deliver on that particular mandate. So all this is very constitutional, and no one should ever say that the people of Kenya are acting extra constitutionally. Having said that, there is a conversation that is ongoing, and I'm happy that General Miguna just said that right now. We do not, it's God is on the side of the people of Kenya. For those who are not believers in God, you'll permit me. 2-3 years ago, the former Chief Justice on the province of Article 2617 of the Constitution did declare this particular parliament unconstitutional and should have been dissolved. Now, those of you who have had a chance to read that particular ruling, it is a ruling and a judgment that is supposed to be in perpetuity for all parliaments. So that this particular parliament in itself is illegal, it's unconstitutional. And what we really need to do, that's my point one in terms of pressure point, is we just need to ask for a decree that this particular parliament then is dissolved. What does that do for us? It does a couple of things, because if you look at when the presidential election needs to be done, the presidential election is then envisaged to take place at the same time as the election of the members of parliament. So that is already a very, very easy process. In fact, you don't even have to struggle. You don't even have to crack our heads. We just need to push in the next couple of weeks for a decree for the Supreme Court to declare that this particular parliament is unconstitutional, as was decided in 2010, dissolve it. And when you dissolve it, the presidency has to seek fresh mandate within the meaning of Article 146, as read together with Article 102 and Article 104 of the Constitution. But let me tell the second thing that I wanted to say. anyone who studied history, and Barack Muluka and colleagues are here, you must already agree that this Kenya Kwanza regime is going to fall. And this was bound to happen, and it was going to happen for whatever regime that was coming in place and was not going to deliver on the people of Kenya. Number one, those who've studied how the mighty persons fall, whether it's regimes, whether it's companies, you will see they walked us through the 4 or 5 stages of falling of mighty people. The first was their hubris. You saw it all, people flagging off very many serious things, feeling all important, high-flying people. The second, of course, was the indisciplined pursuit for more. The third stage, which I think is what I want to emphasize, and I do the fourth one, was the denial of the risk and the peril. You remember when they came to the streets and said the Gen Zs were digital wankers, who could not do anything. They said all manner of unpalatable things. That was basically denying the risk of denial. Now, where we are with Kenya Kwanza and the William Ruto regime is where it is critical. And I think that's what I want to point out, even as we think about the next pressure point. It is on the fourth point, the fourth stage. Of course, mighty people falling is a stage 5 process, but the fourth stage is what was instructive. They're grasping for salvation. And if they're grasping for salvation, it therefore means that they have two things. One, that decline and capitation is very possible, and that is what it should do. Or a bit, if at all they get some resuscitation, then the status quo might remain. But if you look at history, the number of people who've survived a stage 4 fall, apart from Winston Churchill, they're not very many. So that it is possible that even the dalliance that the old regime is trying to give President Ruto and his regime in terms of dialogue and stuff like that, that is not going to be maybe possible. It's not going to be possible to resuscitate them. So in terms of anyone who studied history, I think the conversation is not if the Ruto regime is going to fall. No. The thing is, when is it going to fall? That is the conversation we must have. And that is why, with a bit more pressure point, and that's why I want to move on to the third point, which is what Anthony liked what Anthony was saying, that we must put pressure where it matters most. We must focus the next kind of speakers in terms of where would the pressure matter most. Anthony had this proposal in terms of, if we have sit-ins across major streets, what do we do as the next probable stage of action so that at least we cascade, we fast track this, because again, if you take too long without pushing this regime off the cliff, then you really have a problem of fatigue, many casualties. The sooner we do it, the better, and it's going to be easier. But that it's going to fall is a no-brainer. The reason why Kenyans are saying that the Kenya Kwanza regime must fall is because of how they structured their political economy. I think it's also good. It is nothing personal. It is nothing about any particular tribe. It's nothing about any particular person. It is the way they reign the political economy. It has been founded on patronage. It has been founded on corruption. It has been founded on middlemen. And, they've encroached and they practiced the rent-seeking behavior in a manner that made rule of law and constitutionalism not possible. And that is why, and I agreed with Gen Zs, we are saying we must push off this particular regime simply because of two reasons. They are not believing in constitutionalism. They're not believing in the rule of law. Whoever takes up power after this regime falls off must then take us back to the 2010 constitution. Let's leave those aspirations. Let us agree that Kenya is going to be run on the basis of Article 1, which is supremacy of the people, with all the aspirations of the Constitution 2010, because that is then, for me, what I think will then move us forward. So then moving forward, we must agree, how do we accelerate the next conversations? How do we accelerate the fall of this particular regime? Because we're going to fall anyway. The sooner we do it, the better for us. And then at least we say how then we plan a post Kenya Kwanza regime organizing. Thank you very much, Maj. Maybe you can give the mic for the next person. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Lento, as much coming in. Yeah, let us have ladies on board. Kasi umenyamaza sana, but I can see Tabitha is back. She dropped. Tabi, can you go ahead?
Thank you, Hilary. Maj, you are doing a great work in hosting us in this space and making sure that balance is also achieved well at it. I really want to also just weigh in my condolence to the families that have been affected by the recent finding of the dead bodies. We can't account for why they had to undergo such indecent way of killing and who are the puppets And I think as we talk about the pressure points, we need to, call the bodies that are in charge of making sure that Kenyans are protected, and in that we are not supposed to just be dying, and we cannot even, account for circumstances that resulted to that. So I think we need to really call the bodies that are in charge of giving us protection and also making sure that national security is attained. We need to call them accountable and give them pressure to also give us this report that they keep saying they're forming committees to look into issues that regards to, violation of human rights. And we've seen a lot of killings even during the demonstrations, that we need them to tell us exactly what are some of, the steps that are going to be taken for the people who are found guilty, and even those who have been caught on cameras, national police that were taking part in the demonstrations, and they shot some of the demonstrators live with live bullets. Some of them were seen stepping on their necks. Some of them were seen doing very inhumane, ways of, trying to silence the voices of very peaceful protesters. So we have to see some of this conversation also taking place. We need to call these people accountable. So that we are able to also, as we go towards a free Kenya, a Kenya where all of us enjoy equal human rights conditions, these particular bodies that are in charge of giving us protection need to be held into account as a pressure point. I want to say that it's very good that I've seen the co-hosts and the hosts really giving us direction when it comes to also, this space being objective and just discussing exactly what we really need to see moving forward, other than characters and people already. Some of them we know exactly who they are. So now what is important for us as Kenyans is to, for example, see and offer recommendations on what we would want. Now, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is corruption and the pandemic. It's more of a pandemic. We need to see the government declare this is a pandemic and have the EACC fast track all corruption cases and close them within 3 months, so we see how much we are able to recover from, the looted and embezzlement of public funds from, even this, the cabinet secretaries whom have left power. We need to fast track and see what have we lost when they're in the offices. What did we lose, for example, when Ababu Namama was the CS in charge of the sports ministry? What did we lose, for example, when Nakuminsha was a very boastful CS who could go even to a village and fire the OCPD in that area, and she was a minister of health. What did we lose in these particular ministries? Because we have lost money in billions. And so we need to now call this particular government that we're also trying to make it, leave power. As it does the same, we need to see that the bodies which they are eating already our money, because you see they're being paid. The EACC need also to be held accountable. We need them to give us, some of these, cases that have resulted to these public offices, embezzling a lot of money for Kenyans. I think with that, we will be able to, also have justice for what we work so hard for, and the taxes hiding. I think also any leader whose department is accused of misappropriation and investment of funds must step aside until all investigations are done. So then we also want to see that this government that is, I think, illegitimate at the moment, because the people have made their voice very loud, and they have seen that they have no confidence on this government. We have to call the government officials who are still in offices, whether they're in parastatals, whether they're running, even government agencies, and even the governors who have been found culpable. We have seen EACC coming up with the reports, and the in-sitting governors whom their counties have been seen to misappropriate funds, they're still sitting in those, offices, and they cannot account for the millions of money that are Kenyan money. They're not able to do projects for the people, and we do not see any legal action being taken against them. So we need to give these bodies that are charged with, like the EACC, they need to do their work. We are calling on them to do their work, because as we call the government of the day to go home, they are still having salaries. So as they are at it, then if they're not able to do our work, then we can go and occupy the EACC so that we are able also to, have these bodies do their work. Now that we have the CSS that were appointed, sent home, as we still call on the pressure, the president, whom we are also trying to make sure that he goes home at the end of the day, will appoint other CSS. So while at it appointing the CSS, there is no point in time that he should, by any point, appoint, for example, the cabinet secretary that is in charge of sports, for example, should come from somebody who has been a sports person with a very successful sports career, shown that they have the capacity to lead and bring transformation to the sports ministry, and that we are supposed to see that not for only few people, but it's supposed to help the youth, and the youth are supposed to feel that the department that is charged with making sure that talents are nurtured, and also Kenya talent space and things like that are taken care of. We have to see people competent. If we are looking at, for example, the CS of health, I mean, we are not supposed to have a CS who already, by all chances, have questionable academic credential. That person cannot even know what the issues around health are. We need to see somebody who has practiced as a doctor or as health practitioner, with ears showing credibility. They need to do a background search so that we are not able to bring also other people who have integrity issues in the name of political affiliation to this space. And I think it goes ahead to even look at the other ministries and departments. We need to see that. I think another key thing, we need to have everybody that has been employed during the tenure of one Felix Kosgei, there need to be looked at in terms of the ethical imbalance, so that we ensure there is a balance in the civil service based on the census of Kenya 2019 and of qualifications of people, because we have to live with the fact that there are many, there are tribes who are more dominant in the employment spaces, especially during this tenure of the President Ruto, where we see one tribe holding key positions in terms of CEOs, even in the government parastatals. It cascades down even to the normal employees in the civil service. We need to have a review of the employment. We have to look at and review what are the qualifications, and has it met the threshold for ethnicity balance, because as we talk about unemployment even amongst the youth, then we need to look at how all of them get a position, especially if these people have gone to school, they have the qualification that they deserve. Not one tribe should be getting more government jobs. I think another pressure point for me as an individual, and I'm speaking on my behalf on what I would really like to push to happen, is that these counties, as we talk about occupying them, they actually need to be occupied. Now, the occupation, the auditors now, this EACC need to send the auditors down to the counties. So we need to know that these counties, how much have we been losing during this administration under these governors? What are some of the malpractices that are taking part in these counties? Of course, we know amongst them big is corruption. Bigger ones are even nepotism, and the list continues, because you see the problem that happens at national government. They have even cascaded down here to devolution. I mean, corruption has been devolved greatly. So we need to hold the county government also very accountable. So I think as a guideline towards the pressure points, given other factors and what the great speakers have said today, now we need to have clear as we leave the space today, as we go to Occupy on Tuesday, what are the key pressure points that we need to go and look at as we occupy the counties? Then what is the direction? So if we can have individuals here who maybe by chance already have records of what, for example, say a county where I come from, what are some of the things we need to look at as we go occupying the county and amongst other counties? Then it would be a good guideline for the people whom will take part in this operation, which myself, I'll be there. I'll be at the center. I've always been there, especially here from where I'm speaking in my county. So then we are able to call out even the vices in the county. And as we clean this government and we demand for a better governance space, for better leadership in this country, I'm telling you, it has to start from the bottom. So we have to also hold, we have to have maybe even civic engagement with the people on the ground and get to even understand what is happening on our ward, so that as we call out bad governance and we talk about an administration which is not functioning, and we are calling out for better as people of Kenya because we deserve better. You know, I heard when Ruto was campaigning, he said wajinga wameisha Kenya, na ni ukweli kwa sababu tumeisha. And at the same point, he was trying to take us for fools, but he has realized that really Kenyans are not like people in other countries, in other East African countries, whom they know that they're being taken for a ride and they're still just staying there. And so we want to really understand that we are not just doing this in Nairobi, but even at the counties, as we upscale this and we demand for better. What are some of the pressure points? But as I finish my submission, so that I allow other great speakers also and contributors to weigh in, I would like to say that we cannot win this particular revolution if we are not going to relook at the ways of or the strategies, because as we are talking at the government.
Can you hear Tabitha?
I think she's dropped. She's dropped.
Okay. So sorry, Tabitha, for that. I don't know what happened there.
I can't hear Tabitha. I think there's a problem with our
So
network.
Kingsman, there was somebody who was, there's a lady who was to come before you, but I cannot see her anymore. Please go. And to all the guest speakers, should you want to chime in at any point, just raise your hand and then I'll see and let you go. Kingsman, over to you. Kingsman, can you hear me? Okay. Kingsman cannot hear me. Just let me add more speakers to the panel. Meanwhile, Neto, over to you. As I add ladies, I want to add more ladies. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I think I thank Tabitha for already like pointing us towards some of the pressure points, and I like that, you know, even as you speak, we've agreed that this particular regime is collapsing. The counties therefore becomes another focus because of the rule of law, corruption issues that the countries have gone through. So, I mean, part of the strategy would be if we could spread, you know, the forces. If you could spread the forces too thin, the we must.
Everyone, we'd like to restrict to 2 minutes each so that everyone can speak. And I think we are going to end at the top of the hour because the three hours are going to be over. So Esperance, over to you. And then Lady Justice. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll be as brief as possible. I just wanted to add to whatever Tabitha was saying when it comes to representation. For a very long time, when Uhuru and Ruto duo were elected in 2013, what they wrote down was youth. They called themselves youth. Or you see, like even the cabinet secretary, someone like Ababu Namwamba, he's been Christ and youth. Because somebody is youthful looking does not mean they are youth. So for a very long time, we've had people riding on being youthful and masquerading as youths, yet they're just youthful and at the expense of other young people. So even as we forge forward, I think it's important that young people, as the Gen Zs, we continue to lead this. We really have young people coming to the front and being supported as much as you people are doing. Realize we have millennials and other people. So we really have to bring these young people on board in all honesty, in all conversations. Sorry, Madge, I can see you raising your hand.
Yes, Esperance, just a moment. I forgot to explain. So for the 2 minutes, when I raise my hand, then it means that 1 minute is over and the speaker has another minute to wind up. Kindly proceed.
Or all right, thank you very much. Yeah, so as a feminist, I'd also want to say I'd want women to be brought aboard this movement. Not to be brought a lot, but to also lead. I've seen Tabitha and the works she does in Siaya, and I've seen. I mean, this is. I think I wasn't ready to speak. I don't know how I got here. Thank you very much. Let me continue following.
No, Esperance, I actually can guess what's going on. It has been very emotional, and that's why I'd like to encourage everyone not to downplay the mental weight of what is going on here. So, Kingsman and then Komwanza.
Kingsman, are you connected really?
Kingsman
Marge,
cannot
I
hear
don't know
me
if
now.
you guys can hear me.
Yes,
Can
now.
you go ahead. Kingsman. No.
Okay.
Give Lady Justice or Mukawasi, or who is going next match?
Komwanza and then Lady Justice.
Okay.
Komwanza, can you hear me? Kindly unmute your mic.
Me?
Okay. Mkawasi, Dr. Mkawasi, I can hear you. Please go.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just a small comment I would like to make that was about countering propaganda, because this is going to happen a lot as you keep on going. For example, countering the charge of anarchy. Now, this goes to the idea of how to come against pro-regime propaganda. And I'm told there's a group of opportunistic persons who've been trying to paint the unfolding revolution as anarchy. I would say there's a need for us to resist the reaction of being defensive and have enough information when propaganda comes around. For example, ask them what they understand by anarchy. If they mean chaos, remind them that the beginning of this revolution, and every time Kenyans rose up to demand a better country, that the people turned up unarmed. It's always been the regime and its tools of power who injected chaos. I think this was made clear by Buka. If they mean anarchy as a form of governance, teach them that many African communities that were not kingdoms were organized around anarchical system. And it simply means a government that rejects coercion and authoritarian hierarchy. These kind of places we were in used to be peaceful and they thrived until external intervention happened. Like I know of systems like my own people where the buying and selling of land amongst ourselves was profitable and that worked smoothly until the forces of colonization decided to give our land to other people, to the queen or whoever it was they gave it to. So those who do not know this history will believe we did not have existing healthy anarcho-capitalist systems regulated by councils of elders, where no one was homeless. Now look at where we are now. So if you need this leaderless space to strategize and solidify the revolution, let no one tell you you are chaotic, and press on. You are at a critical point of establishing foundations that will sustain you. Your leadership roles will become clear as you figure out who your friends are, who your enemies are, who you need to work with, who you need to have at the core. I'll just give you one example. Historically, there was one country, Republic of Kospaya, that successfully ran an anarchical government for almost 400 years. And they were so successful, they were so free that the Pope decided to end it all. And I'm not saying this so that we can adopt this kind of system for Kenya. No, I'm just giving this example as arsenal for you to push back on propaganda and insults like being called anarchist and chaos, which would mean violent. Just reject the propaganda and move on, figure out how to get information that can counter what propaganda that is coming at you. It has so far been inspirational to the rest of Africa. This revolution has. So keep the pressure on towards achieving the Kenya where every human life is sacrosanct. That is so important. Start by mourning every single life. Start by having a space where everybody who's killed, abducted, extrajudicial killings that have happened, that person is on a space and their names are there, never forgotten. And this is radical, changing the idea that the lives we have are not important. They are very important. So just keep mobilizing and organizing, solidify your strategies, and stay on mission. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Terry. And now we moved. Actually, before I move to the next speaker, the point that you talk about of countering the propaganda, I must say that this is one that's really not easy, especially when people are the topic is very emotive and people don't even have time to react to or to synthesize one event. Then the next event comes and it just it swims out there, and I see that online. I see people reacting, even turning around and starting to even attack the people they're working with just because of propaganda. So I hope you can probably share of the comment section. I don't. For those who have time to read some literature there, then I think they will just sit down and take, even if it's 20 minutes per day, to just read and get accustomed to that. Thanks so much for that contribution. We go to Kingsman. Are you able to speak now? Otherwise, you go to Lady Justice.
Yes. I'm able to speak now.
Please go, and then Lady Justice is next.
Yeah. Okay. Now, mine. First of all, to those that have come in now, I want to greet you all. Hope you are well. Mine is just to emphasize on the points that our key speakers, Dr. Barak, Dr. Miguna, have spoken about. Kinabuka is, first of all, there's something that Dr. Barak has spoken about, that we need to define clearly what we want as a people in terms of governance. And if either we want a regime change or it's a revolution, then if it is a revolution, there is something that is key, whereby we need to change our system of governance, because I think that is the elephant in the room, and that is what has brought us here. The people who gave us the 2010 constitution, they gave us a very good document that focused so much on human rights, but there is a place I think we were played on. We were played in terms of representation, and we were given one of the most expensive constitutions in the world. If you look at representation at the county level, representation at the constituency level, I think the number of legislators that we have in the country can represent the whole of Africa, even 2 or 3 continents. If you look at the numbers, we have 416 members of parliament. That is now at the Senate, and then at the August House, that is where the MPs reside. We have 290 MPs, 47 women rep as of to date, and I'm not gender biased. I'm still unable to understand what their roles are in the society, and they are. If you look at the both divide of the political class that we have in Kenya, they are just there as flower girls. They are literally doing nothing. If you go to the MCAs, we have 25, 26, 14, 50 elected, and the others are they come from. I see most are appointed or nominated by the parties. They actually have got nothing to do, so that the likes of Alai, the only thing they do nowadays, instead of going around doing the work that they are ought to have done as per the constitution, they are blogging for Ruto. That is what they have become. We have a very expensive constitution and members of parliament, whereby we need 20 billion annually in order to continue servicing this part of this arm of government. If you take the money that we are paying these people like annually, you can, if you take the 20 billion that we pay the member of parliament, you can build 143 primary schools every year at a budget of around 20 million. You can either build another 500 secondary schools every year at a budget of 40 million shillings per secondary school. You can build 100 district hospitals every year you can be at a budget of around 200 million shillings. 50 million shillings in terms of health centers. You can build 6 national state-of-the-art hospitals in the country if you take that money. So there's something I was pondering about, and this alludes to what Muluka was talking about governance. Why should we have people?
Can anyone hear Kingsman? I cannot hear him.
No. I think you dropped.
Oh my gosh, the IT over here is no, I don't know. Anyway, so Hillary, do you want to chime in before we bring in?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Can I chime in, Marge?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Marge, what I would like to say is this: that we should not lose sight of substance and secondary issues, or substance and side issues. I know a lot of people have attacked the 2010 Constitution. The problem is not the Constitution. For example, the Constitution does not set the pay scale for members of parliament. The Constitution may provide for the number of representation, but you could pay them $2 each. You could pay them 100 shillings each. You could pay them 20,000 shillings per month. So the amount of money wasted in providing these charlatans with largesse is not anchored on the Constitution. These are subsidiary legislation they have passed, which we can nullify. The Constitution is not the problem, and that's not the mischief to be fixed. Everybody pointing at the Constitution either is doing so because they have been confused or because they have not thought about this issue correctly. The problem, number one, is corruption. The amount of money we are losing from corruption is 1 million, 10 million, 10 billion times what we are paying, say, for example, our quote-unquote representatives who are not even representing us. For example, Uhuru Kenyatta, the despot, said he was losing, or the government, his regime was losing 2 billion shillings a day. He didn't tell us from where. He didn't tell us who was stealing. He did not stop the stealing. He did not arrest anyone. Nobody was charged. Nobody has been convicted. The money has never been recovered. So which means they know exactly where the money is being stolen, who is stealing, but they don't want to do anything about it because they are the ones who are stealing. So I think we have to identify the problem correctly. The Constitution can be maintained the way it is, and still we can save the country a lot of money if we stop corruption and theft, tenderpreneuring, and if we reduce the amount of money that the so-called representatives are being paid. Now, regarding the women or woman reps, the problem is not the fact that women representatives exist and that they do nothing. It is the quality of the women reps, which then calls into question, how do these political parties choose who the representatives are? They choose their girlfriends, they choose their relatives, they choose their cronies, who are the most incompetent and significantly with absolutely no integrity. So of course, they end up doing nothing. Finally, CDF was declared unconstitutional by the High Court. It was appealed, and the Supreme Court said CDF is unconstitutional. It's supposed to be disbanded. It is this place where the majority of the money is lost. I'll give you an example. Recently, there is a member of parliament for Mumias. I think his name is Salasia. published his payslip and said that at the end of every month, when you take out all the payments, which are payments he is making to mortgage, vehicles, whatnot. So these are not necessary expenses, but regardless, at the end of the month, he says, I am left with less than 3,000 Kenya shillings. So we would expect somebody who is completely pauperized. We wouldn't even expect him to afford a vehicle. We wouldn't expect him to be able to take flights, to buy air tickets. We wouldn't expect him to be drinking expensive alcohol. Things that we see every day, he does. So where does he get the money? CDF. So we are subsidizing these people's ostentatious lifestyles through bribery called CDF. And why is it there? It's not there for the bursaries that people are telling you, oh, this member of parliament is doing this or that. No. The executive want the CDF to continue because it is CDF they are using to bribe members of parliament. As long as 100 million is given to a member of parliament, they will take 80 million and put in their pockets, and the rest they can dangle as crumbs for the poor people in their constituents, and people will be clapping. So there is a lot of work that we need to do. But to do that, we have to think critically about what we are saying, what the problems are with our institutions, because we could also end up being distracted, like I have seen people being distracted to the Constitution. The mischief is not in the Constitution. There is nothing defective in our Constitution. The problem is failure to enforce it the way it was meant to be. Because if we enforced it and implemented the way it was supposed to be, Chapter 6 would eradicate all the problems of governance. But Chapter 6 has never been enforced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Generali.
Marge, if I could just finish, because I think I dropped.
Yeah, you dropped. Yeah.
Like for a minute or two. And then,
Yes, please.
We can
Yeah.
give the mic to someone else.
Please go on, Kingsman. I think Kingsman cannot speak. Okay. Now, Lady Justice.
Neto, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I think the mic has been given to Lady Justice. Lady Justice?
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to honor the lives that have been lost so far and to also send condolences to the families who are bereaving their loved ones. I want to agree with what Dr. Miguna Miguna has just said, that, our constitution is not the problem. In fact, we have one of the best constitutions in the world. The focus should just be on how do we implement this, and perhaps it starts with electing people who are invested in seeing the prosperity of Kenyans. And with that aside, if we're talking about the next pressure point, I'm always conflicted about, yes, we are saying Ruto must go, but how is the next person going to lead Kenya? Because as we already know that we have foreign influence in the country, we have people like IMF, making statements here and there, tells you that they have, they have big interest in the country. How do we get rid of these people? How do we put pressure on the international bodies to take their hands off of Kenya? How do we stop neo-colonialism so that our leaders are not presented with a situation where Ruto is in bed with these people, he's being provided with a very, very bad financial bill, and he's told that you have to let your people sign this, you have to let your people pass this. How do we do away with these other people? Because it's not just a matter of doing away with one bad leader. We could bring in another great leader there tomorrow. Let's say, for example, Hillary goes to be the next president, or even March. But then March gets in there and is like, I cannot do what I need to do for my country, knowing what is important for my country. I can't do it because somebody is holding me back. So how do we do with the foreign influence? I yield. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lady Justice. It so happens that anytime a speaker finishes speaking, I'll be, interacting the space in the comment section. That's why there was a small delay over there. So I have been informed, like we planned previously, that you're going to finish at the top of the hour. There has been some comment on the section where somebody's wondering why the speakers are the only one speaking in the beginning. I would like to clarify that these were invited speakers, and when people invite speakers, they speak first, and then we have others chime in. So this is nothing outside the ordinary. So let's have Sirikali Kenya, then Doreen, in that order, 2 minutes each, and then at I think 40 past, we're going to have the main speakers make closing remarks.
Hi, everybody. I greet you in the name of the revolution, and I'm here to say that I like what the speakers have presented and what they've outlined as things that we need to keep in our minds. And I really truly appreciate Hillary and crew for hosting this and making sure that the conversation goes on. A lot has been happening, but few things that I'd want to mention is that one, in terms of what the people want, it's clear the people want a break from the current system, and it's clear when you say that you want a break from the current system is that we want to end corruption first. We want to end the people who put their bellies first instead of the poor people on the ground. We want to say that it's time that these people, if they cannot shape up, they ship out. And it's very simple. That's what the people want. It's clear. It's been on the streets. It's been everywhere on the media, and we know it. We have it. We feel it. So, what as what the people want is quite clear. Secondly, the constitution, and I'm very glad to be sharing the space with Miguna, Buka, and the rest of the comrades, Mkawasi, and the rest of the comrades who are here. The constitution has all the answers. You cannot say that we have an expensive constitution, yet what we have are political bad manners, people who are there, goons, crooks, bloodletting rascals. How do we have to put up with these people and then we say that the constitution is very expensive? They're making it very expensive for us to live. So I think it's also clear about the constitution. It has all the answers, only implementation. Make implementation work. Implement the constitution as it is without missing a dot or a question mark or a comma. Third, as I finalize, I'd want to say that to make things continue moving, I think we must encourage as many. Yes, I know we are leaderless, we are tribeless, but one thing is we have to make more Kenyans and more Kenyans join the organizing, join the planning, join the decision-making table. So we need all those platforms set up as soon as possible so that we are able to maintain this current revolution. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
In the name of the revolution.
Yes, and thanks for your submission and for keeping the time. Doreen, over to you. Doreen, can you hear me? Then let's go to Nyar Aduen, please. And then Komwanza, 2 minutes each.
Thank you, Marge. I hope I am audible enough.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. People, seeing Ruto and Raila unite is a classic case of the corrupt political class uniting against us, the people of Kenya. And this is because they don't want to be held accountable for their ill-gotten wealth. You remember when we requested for an audit of public fund, all we wanted was to know Who borrowed the money on behalf of Kenyans? For what purpose was the money borrowed? Was this money used for the intended purpose? I believe this document should be readily available with the Auditor General. Instead of Ruto doing the needful, he comes up with some unconstitutional task force. People, the unity you see between the political class against Kenyans is because they are all, and I mean all, guilty and want their ills covered. The battle we are fighting is a battle between the future of Kenya versus the status quo. Secondly, today, this regime is possessed with class divisions. It used to be dynasty versus hustler. Then we moved from working class versus Jokali. That was the period of housing levy. Today, I'm amazed to see them pulling the gender card on the quarry of death victims. Remember, the quarry of death victims is just a few meters away from a police post. Woe unto us, we wake up to the news of all those the policemen who are manning the quarry police post, they have all been transferred. And Ruto pretends to be wondering why Kenyans are angry. These transfers is a classic example of what angers Kenya. All those policemen should be prosecuted. And Ruto needs to know, or somebody needs to remind him, that Kenya already moved from police force to police service. These people must offer their services to Kenyans. Once they fail on their services, let them go home like every other company. And therefore, back to the main topic. Where then is our next pressure point? Aside, somebody had suggested sitting peacefully on the main streets. And therefore, aside peaceful sitting on our main streets, I would therefore suggest all of us in this forum, plus our friends wherever they are, whether you are in the diaspora or you are in the Kenyan soil, can we all take time and write emails to ICC with videos and photos of those massacred? Can we just agree that on Tuesday, as people will be marching to send Ruto home, on Tuesday, as we go on the street, that Monday evening, just before the dawn of Tuesday, we all write to ICC with the videos and photos of the exact things or massacre that is happening in Kenya. That would be my next pressure point. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nyara Duen, for your submission. So let's go to Komwanza, Felix, and Joseph. And I'd really like to apologize to all those who are requesting for the mic, because we might not be able to admit you due to time constraints, but we'll be holding these spaces. We are going to admit you the next time. So sorry about that. Felix and Joseph, and then Komwanza in that order. 2 minutes each, guys, so that at least we have for the main speakers, we have at least 20 minutes where they can finalize. Felix, can you hear me? Okay. Joseph? Yeah, take a go, Felix. I see you. I've muted your mic. Hillary, can you hear Felix?
No, I can't hear anybody.
Okay. Joseph? Okay. Commander?
Thank you, Marge. Thank you, the panel and all listeners. I'll go straight to the point. Now, one, the conversation here and the people faulting the Constitution reminded me of a paper that was written by Professor Okoth Ogendo, Constitution Without Constitutionalism, the African Paradox. And when you read that paper, the takeaway usually is that you cannot legislate away bad manners. We have a cultural problem. People steal, the politicians come to us during every election cycle, they give us handouts and we vote them to power. That's a cultural problem. I think there needs to be reflection on our part as the populace and, of course, the political class, because really we cannot legislate that habit away. In fact, when you go to the UK, Britain does not have a unified one document that they call a constitution, but one of the most organized societies. Now, to the main point here, what's the next pressure point? You realize that the president has dissolved his entire cabinet, including the attorney general. The president needs the attorney general because every decision I think he'll be making after tomorrow that does not have the input, especially if it has anything directly relating or ancillary to the law, then that decision can always be challenged in court because the attorney general is the principal legal advisor to the president. Number two, we see what happened to Farah Maalim when he seemed sympathetic of the regime and what they're doing. People followed him to a hotel where he was in Mombasa and they made him stay there uncomfortable. You see what happened to Osama Otero. When the president will need to constitute a new cabinet, I think if we pile enough pressure on Parliament, on him, and on each one of us, he may lack anybody to serve in his cabinet because people would be afraid of being tainted. When you read the 48 Laws of Power, law number 10, it says that avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. If we do not have anybody serving in his cabinet and the president is isolated, then I think over time, pressure will mount and the president may have to step down. Thank you so much, and God bless all of us.
Thanks, Kamwanza. Ambassador Ambrose, please go, 2 minutes.
Thank
and
you.
then Bazuri, and then
thank you so much. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. This is Ambassador Ambrose Lasoi, PWD President Kenya. I would like only to echo what our predecessors have talked about. Thank you, Dr. Miguna Miguna, for highlighting on the constitutional strategy and our own 2010 constitution. To say the truth, the constitution of Kenya does not have a problem. And when I see people like Raila Odinga is trying to join the government, he's trying to cover up about all the sins they have made. Raila Odinga, we know a lot of the scandals that align Raila Odinga with the current regime and all other the political big men in this country. But now let me just speak about something here about persons living with disabilities. As their leader, I'm not happy because the Constitution of Kenya have a lot of privileges to people living with disabilities. That the problem is implementation. And the other thing about this Constitution is that this Constitution have some departments. It's giving out the room for some departments which is not even in line with other ministries here. So when we are speaking about these departments, this constitution have given us a right. But some finalizing is that we need to stand up and have a topic on how are we going to make this constitution effective to bring out the equity and equality in a dignified way. That is what I can say today. Maybe the other time we can get chance, we speak a lot about this issue. But for now, the pressure we need to have is to have a talk on how are we going to implement this constitution, and we remove some section. And Radul, you will allow me for some seconds. That is that we need to remove some powers, some institutions, especially in Senate, in National Assembly. We need to remove Senate completely. We remain with National Assembly. We need to remain the position of women rep and allow women to fight like other people. So thank you so much. I think when I get another chance, I will just deliberate on other
Yes.
issues. Thank you so much.
Yes, actually, I would like us to have a totally different session, and I would like to just explain that the first time I met Ambassador on a space, it was when the finance bill wasn't yet rejected, and he is one of the people living with disabilities in Kenya, and he explained how it impacted them, how they were lied to and were taken to some place to go and do, like, a rubber stamping of is it called public participation, but they were not even given the time to speak, they were really affected. And he was on the space also trying to tell people how much the gadgets that he uses would cost. But if you turn around, what he was actually trying to say, he was telling us how the poor cannot access these things. So if you're in here and working with people with disabilities back home in Kenya, do get connected to him, and let's also try to see how our government can also protect the vulnerable, because it cannot be that everyone is really under pressure, and the vulnerable ones are also put under more pressure. Bazuri, 2 minutes, and then the speakers are going to close.
Thank you so much, Marge, and I hope you can hear me. First of all, is to join the others in condoling with those that have lost their lives and the families that are agonizing at the moment, looking for their kins and they can't find them. I never thought in 2024 we would be talking about things that were done in 1900s. It is backward, and we cannot continue business as usual. And therefore, I want to be very, very uh, aware that the group of people that have been speaking here have spoken and have said a lot of things that, most of them not new at all. These are things that we have been agitating for, and it is now time to action line, to go to the field and make sure that all the talks that we've made, all the things that we've been wishing to do, the time has come. We've talked enough, we have strategized enough, and we cannot continue now using our mouths. We now have to use what now need to be done next. And I want to also acknowledge and thank the movement, the Generation Z. I might be their cousin or maybe in between there, but I want to say that, when the idea comes, nobody can stop it, and this is where we are at. Now, the weak point here and the pressure that we must continue putting on is that we must not even entertain an idea that would say, let us go sit with what, say with what. We are now talking. We are the people who want to shape this country and how we want it to go. We've been told so many things, and people have been told, nyinyi ni viongozi wa kesho. Kesho is an abstract thing that we never know and we will never want to think about. In terms of leadership, we are going to lead it today and forever. I therefore want to submit that the constitution that we do have, as many people have talked about, is very progressive, but people who have been given mandate and responsibilities to implement and to make sure that things within that constitution gives Kenya a new dawn have failed us. Then it therefore calls me to say this. First of all, anything that is presidential appointee as of now should go home. Go home completely, because it has failed to work. President has Ruto made sure that the cabinet went home. He should also be preparing to go home as well, because he has no business to do in Kenya, to be honest. And Kenya is not less, or it does not lack in any way capacity people who can lead it with integrity in so many ways. So cabinet's home. The next, I think, should be anybody who is appointed home, and no dialogue whatsoever. Anybody thinking that we can go for a dialogue is doomed, because we cannot do that. And lastly, as I conclude, is that, as General said, the people in the diaspora, you have a responsibility to play the safety net, and we cannot at any point afford to even think that we cannot do without you people. We do need you. and we need you to be at the forefront, and we need you to, keep safe the data that we are collecting, all the materials that we are likely to be using going forward. We will need you to be with us, side by side, not anybody behind anybody. No time for that. And lastly, March, thank you so much for organizing the space with Hillary and Neto. And I hope life will be great moving forward. I am looking forward to a better Kenya where mtoto wa masikini atakuwa anajivunia kuwa Mkenya, si kuvumilia kuwa Mkenya. Time has come, we must change our ways of doing things. Thank you so much, Maj.
Thanks so much. Dr. Kimani. Now we're going to the closing session. So I will begin with Dr. Mkawasi.
Mkawasi.
Yes, I'm sorry for butchering your name. And so one question I have to every speaker as they finish off, I'm of the opinion that I know people have a right to do what they want to do or suggest what they want to do, but I have a feeling that if somebody is suggesting, implementing something at the county level, then these are actually people who are distracting from the movement of the current ruling party that we have, which is the National Party. If you could also just spend 30 seconds on that as you submit your closing remarks. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you very much, Maj. This is where strategy becomes really important, because one doesn't need to negate the other. One action doesn't need to negate the other as long as you're clear on mission. So if there are people on the ground in a county somewhere and they have the wherewithal to implement what needs to be implemented towards the same mission we all want, then that is where we need to figure out how we're strategizing so that at some point all the tributaries meet. And that is why I was saying, right now, take your time to solidify your strategies, to figure out your structures, so that when you have different groups in different places and in the counties, it's possible to actually have a staying on mission kind of approach. I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally, with somebody deciding somewhere in Garissa or Kisumu or wherever, deciding that they want to take action on the ground. That is fine for me, as long as your mission is clear for everybody and your strategy is clear. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you have more on closing remarks, or shall we proceed to the next? Because we're closing now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Still me?
with your closing remarks. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. On the pressure points that you need to concentrate on right now, I feel is having a strategy. And as you work on your strategies, I have said this to other people: create that war chest, because you're going to need it. You guys on the ground are going to need it. There are those of us who are far away, but who are able to be completely useful to the revolution from wherever we are. If we look at how governments have been, how systems have been toppled and changed to better systems, all the way from the days of Hitler, these guys were able to do the work they did and to topple the strongest dictators, the strongest of militaries, by having a strong and powerful underground with hundreds of technocrats and professionals who were scattered, who could not be on the ground, who could not have boots on the ground, but could feed the underground with the resources they have and with the spaces they have, because it's going to get tough. Power will fight back, power will bite back. And it's not even started. We know the dirty things that have already happened. We know the lives that have been lost that we are not even being told about yet, but it's going to get dirtier. So that is why I'm saying we need to have this war chest of resources and spaces that you're going to be ready with. So keep reaching out. Let's stay together. Kenya is our country. We love it.
Thank
Over
you
to
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Dr. Terry, for being with us and for your submission there. We go next to Dr. Muluka. Kindly submit your closing remarks and chime in 30 seconds on what you think about the strategy of, putting the pressure point both on the county and national government. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Maj, and thank you everybody who has contributed, been very constructive and informative. I think I still restate the need to be very careful about change of guard and systemic change. I buy in completely when we say that we need to understand and to define their enemy, and that there is need to understand very clearly how to characterize the entity we call the enemy. But I still see that there is need to understand that there is a system, and that until and unless the system is overthrown, we are not able to talk about a revolution. And therefore, forward-looking strategies by the Gen Z, by Kenyans, progressive minds, it should be about the overthrow of the system, of a decadent system, certainly dealing with the individuals who drive that system, but not being satisfied. For example, we have taken some palliative joy out of the fact that the cabinet secretaries have been dismissed. Those are just custodians. If you bring other people within that system, the system remaining intact, they are likely to be as decadent as those who have been there before them, perhaps even worse. And that goes all the way to the counties. Also, the self-same vein, there is the formal government and there is the informal government. The informal government, the informal cabinet percolates around the center of power. People who have got no known mandate, no known authority, but they festoon the center of power and they decide what happens. Have we addressed the question of the firing of those kinds of persons and individuals who sometimes are tougher than the person we presume to be the toughie? Very finally, therefore, on account of time, I think we have listened and had very useful contributions, but in my view, they remain long on description of the characters that govern, of the state that they govern, and not very much about what should be done. In subsequent conversations of this kind, I think we want to engage more on bullet points of what to do, PowerPoints. This is what we should do. This is what should be done. Having appreciated the nature, the character, and the description of the state and of its custodians. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Over to Neto and then Generali.
Thank you very much, Maj. It was nice co-hosting. And though we had a couple of challenges, I would like to thank all the speakers and everyone else who's present on this particular space. And thanks to you, Maj and Hilary, for hosting. I think we have our foot on the door in terms of pushing this regime out of power. And we must ensure that we have all the civil structures turned back on the aggressor. I listened carefully, and I think one of the things people are proposing is we must have this revolution remain non-violent within the meaning of Article 37. The second thing that people are saying is that, the Kenyan Constitution has no issues. We just need to get in place constitutionalism and the rule of law to help us deal with the corruption, to help us deal with the lack of discipline that gets into office. The third thing that I had to say, of course, is a need and which is much the strategy in terms of taking people to the counties is to stretch the armed forces thin. Whenever you want to do a proper revolution, half the time, of course, the revolution starts in the villages. So when you stretch it thin, the armed forces does not have a chance to rearrange themselves. But like we agreed, let's focus in the city center of Nairobi, where there's seats of power, but you also spread the street thin, and the counties is really an avenue that helps us also arrange people, because then you galvanize the state, you'll galvanize nationally across the counties, because there's theft there, there's corruption there, and those are all rule of law issues cutting across. The fourth thing, and which is what I liked, is we can actually pile pressure on the presidency when it comes to appointing his next cabinet, to the extent that he has no one to appoint. Therefore, he then doesn't have a government to deal with. The other thing that I heard is there's a need to do a public, an independent audit, an independent inquiry on the public debt, because that is part of the problem. The reason why the ruling class can find a simple reason to converge is because they've been part of the problem, they've stolen. So an audit on the public debt, which is independent, will also help us expose and show who then we really need to go for, and to that extent. The other thing I heard is, the need for sit-ins in major establishments. Let's focus how we can put and pile pressure, by having proper sit-ins, getting more major establishments, and delivery of government systems to really come to hold. I think we've agreed that we also need to push for senior members of government and no dialogue. Senior members of government to go home, and there's no dialogue, and no one else should push us into things, because time for action is now, and we must deliver a better Kenya. Just to finish, someone has asked a question which I think I need to respond to on the chat, is that it is good to contextualize that it is possible to dissolve parliament, but dissolution of parliament is only possible in one instance in Kenya, on the meaning of Article 2617 of the Constitution, where the current parliament does not deliver on its law. So when you're talking about dissolution of parliament, it's only possible because already there's right now a judgment that makes this parliament unconstitutional, and then therefore it is actually possible to dissolve it. You don't even need anything else. You just need to push pressure in terms of a decree to ensure that this particular parliament is dissolved. So that's another pressure point that we can add. However, if we pushed parliament to be dissolved, it is then possible, very easy, to make sure that the Kenya Kwanza regime goes home together with the parliament in a way that gives us the chance to reboot back to constitutionalism, get back constitution of Kenya, because both the president and the parliament will have gone home, and then we can start the process of rebuilding a new Kenya. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone else for participating. I'm grateful. Thanks.
Thanks, Neto, for doubling up as a speaker and a co-host. It was a wonderful co-hosting with you. And now we go to Generali. Your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Maj. Thank you, Maj. I agree with almost, I think, everything that my co-speakers or my fellow speakers have contributed. Very insightful, and of course, the contributions from the floor. My closing remarks will consist of a few statements, basically based on some of the statements that I have had. There was a contributor called Lady Justice who asked the question regarding the foreign interests and how we are going to deal with them. And this is an important question. And my answer is historical and basically revolutionary history. Many of you will recall the person I call the African, the captain or the champion of African revolution, the only one that I think made contributions that left absolutely no negative mark. And that is Thomas Sankara. When Thomas Sankara came to power in Burkina Faso, then Upper Volta, the country was in tatters. It was poor, foods insecure, malnutrition, mortality rates of children very high. It was a basket case. And in 4 years, not only did Thomas Sankara address the issue of foreign debt, foreign interests, imperialist interference, child mortality rate, food insecurity, unemployment, security itself, eliminated corruption, and made governance be pro-people in Burkina Faso. He did that in 4 years, and he was in his 30s. There was no magic to it. The Western so-called interests could not stop him. They eventually conspired and had him killed, but he had already delivered, essentially showing you that it's not difficult. In fact, it is not difficult at all to address this issue of debt. We've been discussing this issue for the last 2 weeks. And the first thing that I have had almost a concurrence on universally is that we should not pay odious debt. All debt that was taken illegally cannot be owed, because the only contract that binds a country is a legal contract. An illegal contract cannot bind a country. So these people arguing that we must pay all this odious debt is just a scheme to steal from the people. We can tell IMF that we are not paying odious debt, and there is nowhere they can take us. We can reclaim and repatriate all the money that was taken as debt but were kept in Washington, DC, in New York and London, and we can pay the legitimately acquired debt. Then we can close up the offices of the IMF and the World Bank. The world will not come to an end. There are countries where they don't operate. The world did not come to an end. The world has not come to an end in Russia. The world has not come to an end in Eritrea. The world has not come to an end in Rwanda. In fact, Rwanda is thriving, even though Rwanda refused to pay a lot of those odious debt. In fact, all of them. So all we need are leaders that have a firm grasp of ideology, who have a commitment to working for their people, and who have integrity. And this problem will be gone. So let us not worry and waste time and think too much about the Western interests. These people will not be able to do anything. You know, somebody reminded me of what was said. Was it Amilcar Cabral or was it Che Guevara? Who said, actually, no, it was Thomas Sankara, who told them, look, if I pay your debt, my people will die. But you will not die if your debt is not paid. So there's nowhere they can take you. Anyway, going to the second issue. The second issue regarding writing to the ICC, which I think NATO may have missed inadvertently. This is a brilliant idea, and I think that those who are able to put in a letter to the ICC with the videos and pictures, clear images of the dead bodies, the chopped bodies, the tortured bodies, the bodies floating, should do so any day, including Monday before July the 16th. The third point is the point that Barack Muluka made. I think part of the issue is Dr. Muluka was not here the previous occasions when we've been holding this space. We have actually discussed that issue. We've discussed the nuts and bolts of transforming this system. And I actually even presented a 2-page document, which many did not comment on, but it is still there. And many people came up with ideas, and we should still come up with ideas. The issue is that these spaces are political rallies. They are not strategy sessions. More than about 700,000 people listened live to our first space, and millions of people later on tuned in. So it's a political rally. You can't do strategy in a political rally. We are only hitting the red button issues. Strategy has to be done by specific individuals with ability to do strategy, and then they can present their papers. and that should be ongoing. But I agree, we cannot have the entire system overhauled if we don't think of strategy. Tactics is what we are using to execute this this revolution. But then there will be a strategy of overhauling the system, which would have to be in-depth, would have to be carefully reflected and thought about, and has to be grounded on theory and historical knowledge. The other point, which tail doves into what I've already said, is that when all of this is done, when we are finished with the revolution and the overhauling of the system, the constitutional transformation will happen as a matter of course. And then we'll come to the issue that a person raised, questioning the cultural problem in Kenya. Kenya does not have a cultural problem. Africa does not have a cultural problem. The problem of begging or handout is not a cultural problem. It is a problem that is material. It's caused by pauperization. Pauperization that is intended, was aimed, planned, and executed by the elites currently presiding over the state. They did that deliberately. The destruction of the educational system, the massacre of industries, the destruction of entrepreneurship, the elevation of tribalism, cronism, and nepotism as the basis for getting employment rather than education and experience and expertise and creativity and innovation was deliberate. So that you can put a group of people that don't care about the population, they are few, they are well fed, they are very rich, they own everything, everybody else then serves them. Everybody else becomes desperate. They become serfs or servants. That was deliberate. And this is what we have to change. This is what we have to transform. The moment we transform that, there will be no begging. When I grew up, even when we grew up very poor, we were not begging. We were not asking anybody for handouts. I know that the Gen Zs do not know this because they were not alive then, but that was the situation. And that system was still under a capitalistic, exploitative system, but it was better than this. We can make it much better than that system. Finally, I want to say that we have to demystify and deconstruct William Ruto's propaganda and the regime's propaganda and those who are fortifying the regime. They have been dangling this threat that, oh, if William Ruto were to resign and his government will have chaos. But what we have right now is chaos. I mean, can you imagine having a country where so-called security agencies wear hoods, put masks, cover their faces, are coming in overalls and abducting people in civilian vehicles whose number plates have been removed and or fake number plates. And their commander is a 3-grade Farouk Kibet at State House. I mean, that's not a country. That is what chaos looks like. They're telling us that we want chaos, that we want anarchy, yet they're presiding over exactly what they're saying we want. Anarchy. What country, what normal country have decapitated women thrown into quarries near a police station? If that is not chaos, I don't know what chaos means. If this is not anarchy, I don't know what anarchy looks like. We have police officers and snipers whose images have been shared, whose telephone numbers have been shared. And some of them continue to say to the people calling them that, oh, I'm sorry I did not shoot you. When they are asked, why did you shoot those unarmed civilians protesting near parliament? The guy says, I'm sorry I did not shoot you. This guy is known. His name is known. His telephone number is known. He has not been arrested. Koome has not been arrested. Bungei has not been arrested. The guys at State House purporting to be security advisors have not been arrested. So William Ruto does not have a constitutional right to torture. He does not have a constitutional right to abduct. He does not have a constitutional right to murder. He does not have a constitutional right to set up a cabinet made up of 2 communities or 3 or 4, which is what his face of Kenya looked like. He does not have a constitutional right to appoint 52 PSS from 3 communities, for example. I mean, everything the man has done for 2 years is unconstitutional. The Constitution is very clear about how you are supposed to govern. The Constitution does not say that when you quote unquote win an election and assume power and you have problems delivering, then you come and pretend that you are forming a GNU, a government of national unity, so that you can pacify the country and make people forget about all these atrocities you have committed. So, in other words, in summary, what I am saying is that there is absolutely nothing unconstitutional that we are seeking. There is nothing chaotic that we are seeking. There is no anarchy that we are seeking, that we are sitting pretty on Article 1 and 2 of the Constitution. And as contributors have already said, there are many, many other constitutional provisions within the Constitution that supports our activities. And therefore, we should, I think the end remark is this: we should do whatever we can. We should reach everybody that we can, by phone, by WhatsApp, by text, by whatever means, so that we have a huge turnout on July the 16th, so that we can push this man out and have a good transition into a system that will lead us to an overhaul of the entire rotten political and economic infrastructure. I thank everybody. I thank all the contributors, all the speakers, and all the co-hosts of this space. And I wish you all a pleasant evening, a pleasant night, and a good revolutionary 2 days coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. I will not take a lot of time, just conclude by saying 3 things. Dr. In the very first space that we had, it was not 7.1 people listening, but 60,000. It was a full stadium. I just wanted to put that out there. It was really, really like, I think the first time we even held a space with a full stadium listening. Secondly, I would just like to encourage everyone.
Oh, I thought I said 700,000.
No, later.
Maybe I misspoke.
No, when we were live on, there were actually
Right.
60,000, and then later, there were over 700, almost a million.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It was really much more. Yeah. And then now, I would like to encourage everyone who's on this space not to really underestimate the mental health weight that this is going to have on many people. I could as well detect on some speakers was on the ground, like people are just really tired. So please, if you're able to take 15 to 30 minutes of walk daily, so that at least you can be able to focus again. Let's also not give up. Let's try to avoid misinformation. It's really, really, there are a lot of information going out there. Please, before you respond, just try to synthesize, try to ask yourself if this is true or not. Lastly, we're going to, because there was a lot of support from the diaspora, but when they were just holding demonstrations, they don't want to be only doing that, but they want to also have their right to voting given to them, because currently we have less voting centers in the whole diaspora, and it is in the constitution, but the IEBC has decided to interpret it differently. And so next week we're going to have a session whereby we're going to dissect on how diaspora rights can be improved, and in a way that they make all the embassies and missions abroad polling and voting decision. That way we're able to help more if we are 4 million, at least 4 million registered vote, because at the moment we're only 10,000 voters, and the government just tends to look at us as ATMs, and so we want to be helping on both ends. And that having been said, I give the mic to the host, Hilary. Over to you as we finalize.
Oh, thank you so much, Maj. Thank you so much, Neto. Thank you so much, Daktari Miguna Miguna, Buka, Mukawasi, Dr. Barak, Tabitha, and all the speakers and all the listeners and everybody who chimed in today. It was amazing conversation that we have. But I want to assure you that this is just the beginning of the pressure point that we want to move forward as we go along, and keep it alive, follow each other all the time so that you can see when the next session is coming in. We want to appreciate your presence always and also your contribution. We have a lot of feedback that we're getting. We're gonna read them later, and we'll make sure that we give you feedback. Keep alive and keep it always in this space. And on Tuesday, you know what is coming in, and also we are thinking that we will have a conversation, God willing. But at the same time, our pressure point is just we need a better governance, and also make sure that things runs well and going according to the policies and the constitution of our country, and to keep our country safe, to keep our country always number one. Thank you so much, guys. May God bless you and see you. Those who are gonna sleep, have a blessed night. Those who are waking up, have a good morning.
Sorry, Hilary. If there's somebody in here in the UK. The UK people are demonstrating on the 16th also in London. So if you're in the UK here and you haven't seen that, you have that information. Back to you, Hilary.
Thank you so much, Maj. Bye.
Watch, share, like, subscribe.